up guys, welcome back to a brand new video, and I'm filming this directly after my Harry Ride first impressions, and that is a first impressions for High Rise Invasion, the first two volumes in this omnibus format from Seven Seas. It was kind of, I'm lukewarm about these first two volumes. I think they were interesting and they were decent. The art is good and the action is very interesting, but in terms of plot, I don't think it's going to give you too much throughout the series. I don't think it's going to be a very plot heavy and story driven narrative for the duration of the series. In terms of the plot, it's about, well, for these first two volumes we mostly get stuff from the perspective of Honjo Yuri, I believe it is. Yeah, Honjo Yuri, main character, a female lead, which is quite interesting to see and quite cool. And most of the first two volumes from her perspective as the only characters that we really see, with the exception of a few humans dotted throughout the volume and a new female right at the end who I feel like is going to become more of a main character. Every other human dies off during the volume, and they aren't really that interesting of characters. But the loose plot is that she wakes up on top of a building with no recollection of what's really going on or how she ended up there, and in this world you can't escape to the lower floors of buildings or to the ground floor outside. You can only travel on atop buildings through bridges like this, which we see on the cover, and that is the only way to kind of travel around. And from these first two volumes we learn that a helicopter will come every so often that will allow you to travel to the ground floor, and that's basically the world that's been set up. So there's a lot more to be explored in terms of the world, and I do think that if you just look at the plot from the outside and not having read the first volume, you will think that it's a very interesting plot, which it is, but I feel like it's not going to be too focused on throughout the series, and I do think that it's just going to be just a lot of action, which isn't a problem. I don't think. I think that once you read these first two ones, you know what the series is about. You'll know whether you'll enjoy it or not. I mean, it's not a series that's for everyone, but it's a good series nonetheless for what it is, and that's just kind of a minus action for a lot of the time. Even with our main character, she's not really too much of an interesting character, not explored incredibly, and you spend a lot of time with just her and her thoughts, and she's still not that interesting of a character. So unless some major plot points happen throughout the series which progress her excessively, which I don't believe they will, then she's just going to be kind of a two-dimensional character throughout the series. I mean, she's a bit of an eccentric character, and that's cool, it's different, but that's never really explored that often, apart from times where she wants to jump off buildings. I think that the main characters that still show is probably these masked men. They have the most interest about them. I'm curious to see what the motive of them is. So they're quite interesting and they all look pretty cool. The guy, the sniper, are probably taking the cake for all the masked characters, or the masked female that she fights on the roof, also quite cool. But I think that deaths are going to feel quite irrelevant in the series. Deaths are main characters. I don't think the manga is going to do the best job of building up connections to characters enough for you to, when they're killed off, actually have any emotional attachment to them. That kind of links back to the fact that there's not really much progression in the series, and that's why I feel like it is just mostly about the minus action. But again, not necessarily a bad thing, because it's just something you can sit back and enjoy and not put too much focus into, because it's just with good art, it's just minus action. A couple of gripes I have with the series though is some of the angles that stuff is drawn at is just a bit strange and unnecessary. Like some of the drawings of our main protagonist, and like the angles to which this kind of facing and stuff is it's strange. And if you read the series, you kind of know what I mean. And also that weird kind of relationship that she has with her brother, which is kind of explored, but at the same time not, is also seems kind of strange and doesn't really need to be there. Although it's not bad or not taking up too much of the series and doesn't ruin anything, it's just a bit of a strange relationship that I hope isn't explored in too much detail because it's just strange. But other than that, the action is all good. The masked characters are interesting, and the action scenes are pretty badass. So that would probably keep me going in the series more than the characters in the world. It's just fun and easy to get through. Even these 2 volumes are just really quick to get through and just fun. And it's something you can read when it comes out every couple of months, just to get your fill of action in, basically. But if you're coming here for a very story-driven narrative, this probably isn't it? It kind of just reminds me of a basic zombie series on a roof. Even though they're not zombies, it's just kind of similar to that. That's kind of what it reminds me of. And obviously the roof element of it is kind of cool and interesting. And I hope that they do fun stuff with that and explore that, because I feel like some cool action scenes can be had there. And obviously I've got more of the series to read, so it could get very plot and narrative driven as the series goes on. But for these first 2 volumes, it's not too interesting in terms of story, but I did still enjoy it for the action, and that's kind of just the general theme of this first impressions. So I would recommend it if you're just looking for some mindless action, basically. But it is a good series. So kind of contradicting myself there. I'm somebody who usually prefers character progression and plot, but in this case I didn't mind the lack of progression, if that makes sense. And although it's a very strange and gory series, it kind of gave me vibes of the first Fire Punch volume, where it was really strange and really weird, but you couldn't put it down because it was interesting and fun and kind of mindless action. So that's kind of how I felt about High Rise Invasion. Not nearly as weird as Fire Punch, but still just something to compare it to. So yeah, that's the first impressions for this. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Other than that, have a great day and peace.